Yourself? Are you aware of any thermostats in here? Yeah. We're going to do the pre-meeting calisthenics. But everyone will stay close to their 3 minutes.
I know, right?
Oh, that's fine.
My wife was telling me that she watched some of this last month. You would pick up a lot of the conversations that are going on after, like, it's all over.
It's cool.
I'm not convinced it does anything. I'm just saying this.
So what we get is just like a council chamber animal. And it's set in here when you need that each chamber.
Yeah, I don't know where the occupancy sensor would be for here. They're usually little motion detector things.
Is that it by the exit light? Or is that? If it's behind it, it doesn't really do it.
Well, I'm sure some electrician probably just threw it up there.
Yeah,
Hey, how are you?
good. Keep your gloves on.
It's been a long year already, hasn't it?
It does.
Feels like it.
Oh,
Is it cold in here or is it just?
it's cold. So,
Reminds me of my office.
so Josh said there's a occupancy sensor somewhere in here that really needs to activate.
When I came in my building on Monday, it was 50 degrees. Appreciate it.
We wore what we wore there back, like, you know, we wore all the.
It's actually been the most antiquated system you could have, 17 years old.
God said no.
What's that? Oh, yeah. That's gotta be brutal. Those are the best, they tell me.
Slowest.
But they've been other issues. Find a fault in the Boilermaker. I know how to reset it and let it in.
Actually, I'm not exaggerating. This feels like our office. That's how cold our office gets.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, so we live in 1902 farmhouse, and so our bedroom faces west, original windows, and literally it feels like the air conditioning is on when you sleep at night because you can feel the cold just coming through the window.
Yeah.
Hello.
You pay for the charm of your house.
I guess.
Well, we'll see what day works best. I kind of make it like space or I'll let you. But Jackie just went.
Maybe this will be a quick council meeting.
Yeah, right.
Flip everything on the agenda.
Everybody good? Good. All right, we're up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Lucky the one who gets put in the hot seat.
Hey Jennifer, how are you? Hey, thanks. How are you? Winter Wonderland. Winter Wonderland. up or
So
again.
if you do, I will. If I do, will you? I was thinking about my app. Okay.
If I kept my hoodie on, had I known this.
Fails to pay heating bill. How's it going? You might want to leave your coats on.
Don't take your hat off.
Don't lose that body heat. Hang on to that body heat while you can.
Make sure the boiler's actually on.
That could be a problem tomorrow morning.
You've had a long day, haven't you? Yeah. At least one, man. That looked good. Day after the holiday flight, somebody probably forgot to turn the thermostat up. Whatever.
Yeah. How's it going? Good.
Freezing. It sure is.
Exciting thing going on in
Go get your coat, Nancy.
Just the real estate stuff, rental stuff.
Saving money.
So, one of my busy seasons is starting right about now. So we start to figure out for my rental houses around UT, what students are staying, who's leaving. So, and then in the spring is when you find people for the houses the next fall. So the spring is really busy for me, and then like the last 2 weeks of July, when everybody moves out and moves in.
So let's make this a short meeting,
That gets
okay?
really fun too. So I'm not bored right now. No. Yeah.
What happens with all the rentals in the summertime? When you go out?
There's kids in them. Yeah. So basically we have 2 weeks in the end of July where if people aren't staying another year that they're empty, but then that's when we clean everything, fix everything, all that kind of stuff. So
They just run them the school year for the whole.
for pretty much the whole year, yeah. Pretty much the whole calendar year, minus 2 weeks, yeah. So yeah, some universities and colleges the student rental season is just the academic year, and they're empty in the summer. But at UT, kids stay year-round because they just hang out. I mean, they work and some take summer classes, some just loaf off in the summer. It'd be nice to do again, but
As long as their parents are paying for it, what the hell?
it's really not that much though. I mean, if you have a part-time job, you can, you can pay for your for your rent and everything. So, and that's the point too. It's not like super luxurious apartment or anything, which there are around UT. There's some really nice apartments, but if you're splitting the house 4 ways, I mean, it's like $300 a month. So that's pretty doable.
Hello, Dan.
Yes.
I need a space here, not liquid,
All right, we'll call to order the Maumee City Council meeting for January 16th, 6:15 today. Call the roll, please.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kurt? Linebaugh?
Yes.
Noonan?
Yes.
Pufferberger?
Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Obviously, Mr. Kurt is with us electronically again this evening, so welcome, Ted. And first order of business is the committee of the whole. I'll yield to President Barrow.
Thank you, Member Dowell. Going over the packet here, are there any concerns or questions about anything on our agenda?
Thank you, Council President Barrow. We have a couple ordinances on the agenda tonight, 002 and 003-2024. I read through the 19 pages comprising those ordinances, and there is simply a lot there. I understand at least some of the intent behind these ordinances. They're likely more than I can grasp. And I understand there's a strong desire to ensure that the structures in Maumee are safe for any all occupants. And that entails making sure applicable codes are followed and work inspected to ensure compliance. I believe the vast majority of people who own property and who work in the building trades would agree with that goal. What we have on the agenda in these ordinances is what knowledgeable people in the city administration think is best to achieve that goal. But they're being put forward here for us tonight. Now, based on my reading of the ordinances, I see plenty of reasonable ideas that could be implemented for the betterment of our city. But because these ordinances will have such a significant impact on numerous people in Maumee, I would like to have other knowledgeable people in the city contribute their ideas before voting on a final ordinance. Combining the perspectives and knowledge of a broader group, city and citizens, can only benefit the citizens of Maumee. Maybe we can find a better balance between enforcement and voluntary compliance by targeting very specific problems that everyone agrees on. A year or so ago, we gave 3 readings for an ordinance that restricted fireworks in the city. I think it was back in 2022. I submit that these ordinances that we have on our agenda tonight will have a much larger impact on our community than the fireworks. And they should warrant at least the same treatment as the fireworks ordinance with 3 readings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns?
I have a couple questions. And I apologize, I just got back in town. So replacement of, could I get some explanation of what a certificate of appropriateness for the historic district means?
Sure. We would yield to
Alan?
Yeah, those are certificates that are required if you're in certain districts that your house has to meet certain standards. There's a permit requirement that you have to submit a drawing as to what type of work you're doing in those districts. And so then the service department issues a certificate of appropriateness just to indicate that that's appropriate additions or modifications to that property.
And do we just require it for the historic district, like for Maumee?
It's always been required. We just said, go ahead. Instead of giving somebody a certificate that says you're good to go.
Okay.
That's all Alan changed.
Okay. But is it just the historic district right now in Maumee that we do this for?
We just see a bonus for everything else. The certificate of appropriate means you're in congruence with architectural standards.
Okay.
Historic district in compliance with Department of Interior standards for the areas that are in the federal register areas.
Okay.
Also, yeah.
Okay. And then I just wanted, so in 1301.10 permits, never mind. Okay. I think that was it. Do you think, could you explain, I guess, based on what Councilmember Weinbach said about, the reason why we're doing this as an emergency versus not doing the 3 readings like we did for, as he mentioned, the fireworks.
Right. Well, this ordinance really modifies the requirements for certificates of occupancy and permits in the city of Maumee. Individuals and firms performing work in Maumee without permits is an increasing issue. These code changes really address these issues in a couple different ways. One is if there's new construction or change of occupancy of a building, the property owner has to obtain a certificate of occupancy before using the building. So as part of that, we just determine if the property is properly zoned, obtained all permits, all required inspections before allowing them to use a certain property or any building that's been constructed or modified within the city. So it really becomes a health and safety issue because of, like I said, we discovered numerous places that have been remodeled without any type of permits. So we don't know what's really happened, and until we can get inspections done and certificates of occupancy is one way to address that. So it also updates and reinforces the building permit requirements for any construction repair work. We already have a permit requirement. There's a state code that requires permits for commercial modifications and certain requirements requirements for that that are already in place. And we just really added a section as to what type of things don't require permits. Most of the added language really just addresses items that are currently required as part of the permitting process. We also updated demolition permit section to clarify requirements for demolition of structures. These updates are requirements that are technically in place by state and federal law, but we didn't spell them out in detail in our code. And there is some ongoing demolitions coming up that, you know, it's important that we have these in place. And again, it's mainly health, safety, and welfare, not only of citizens, but anybody who uses any of these structures or buildings within the city.
So essentially, it's something that needs to happen now, and not wait with the readings, because we have these things coming up and happening that we know of that need to get them changed and updated. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Puffenberger, I just want to add to that, and I certainly respect, Phil and I met this weekend, and I respect his questions. I'm not sure what could be added to this, from having that perspective, because things like you ought to be licensed and insured to have workers' comp at our residents is something every community does. We just haven't. Those kind of things isn't really up for discussion. What do? You're gonna say that, at some point, oh, by the way, you have to have insurance, but you really don't have to name anybody as additional insured, or if you got a roofer, you don't have to have insurance if you're somebody who like or don't like. Right? The issue is it's gotta be across the board. We've been very, very lax. And what we're finding is that a number of contractors get pretty upset with us because they're licensed to do things. We have a lot of people who come in here that aren't licensed, aren't insured, and take work from people who are, and put our residents and businesses at risk. Those things aren't really negotiable. They shouldn't be, because those things are covered under state law. If you're a journeyman plumber, you have to have certain licensures. You have to carry certain licenses. Somebody who's not licensed in your home, and you pay them in any type of remuneration, they're required to be licensed. You can't trade or barter for somebody who is a contractor that isn't licensed in terms of those things. That's why I think these are important. And John and I discussed this actually ad nauseum about these things. And he included a lot of stuff that was in state law that you see bolded in here that we wouldn't have to put in here, but we put in here so people could see it. Because even our staff wasn't recognizing the full extent of what we weren't requiring. Like this ordinance would not allow you to simply give a binder for a workers' comp policy. Because I've been in this business a long time too, as a builder. I can tell you how many times contractors who were subcontracting for me would give me a builder's risk policy as a binder, or would give me a workers' comp coverage document, and I never pay the insurance, and 30 days later, a roofer fell off the roof, broke his tailbone, and I'm not covered. Those are the kind of things that we expose our residents to risk from contractors. There's a lot of good contractors in our community that do the right thing. Everybody should be doing the right thing. We should judge them at the same standard. That's why we do it. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to respond to some of what Alan mentioned. Well, first of all, I appreciate Councilman Lineback's desire to look at this and give it more time. But when we go to the emergency, as you understand, it's because of specific things that have already happened or are going to happen. One is the demolition of something pretty important that the people were going to go forward with this and didn't have the proper certifications, or the people, or the proof that they were going to go through it the proper way. The other thing was the certificate of occupancy. And I can tell you from a landlord for a lot of years, people said, why would you need to have a secondary occupancy permit? You already had one, the builder's up the code, everything's fine. Well, the tenants, as pointed out here, do a lot of things to your buildings you're not aware of. They run electrical wires, they take down walls, they do a lot of change into that building, which would make it out of code, or for another purpose, just simply change and put the landlord had in mind when he originally rented it, was going to re-rent it. But I just wanted to speak to what Alan, a couple of things you mentioned, and why we have to be emergency in that particular, how I feel so about it. Thank you. Any other comment?
I just had one point of clarification on ordinance 03. It said it's eliminating or alleviating the need for the Board of Control. To my knowledge, I can't remember the last time that board has even met. So it seems like this makes sense to replace something that hasn't been used in who knows how long.
And we don't do local testing for licensed contractors, the state does that. That's what that board does.
Do we have any other comments or concerns? Thank you, this concludes the committee of the whole.
Thank you. Next is citizen comments. If anybody here has an interest in making a comment, you can approach the podium for a 3-minute piece. State your name and address.
Mark Erman, 306 East Harrison. Just wanted to make a comment about the Uptown revitalization, and in specific, the crosswalk on Harrison. I've come to use that and found it very convenient, like for instance on a Sunday morning, I'll be motivated to walk to church, and the traffic is pretty calm at that time, but that center island gives you a respite to look both ways, you know, and the traffic is very manageable. So I give the administration and council a lot of credit for those kinds of attention to detail and making Maumee that much more pedestrian friendly. Besides, it's doing what it's designed to do. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Bill Brown, 504 West John Street. I don't know if you've had this problem brought to you before, but the angle parking is, I consider too narrow. I go to St. Joseph Church, and there's days we cannot get out of our car, because they're not making cars smaller now, they're making them bigger. They're SUVs and there's trucks. And this last Sunday, my wife and I were parked, and there was a truck there, and an SUV on the other side. We couldn't even get out of the car because it's too narrow. And I don't know if you've had problems with this before, or if it's just in front of St. Joe's, but I know I've talked to other prisoners there, and they were having the same problem. So I was wondering if you could check that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Martin Irving from Des Moines, Ohio. I had overheard Mr. Barrow, is it, say something about the demolition contractor who would be doing the work. I'm assuming that you're talking about the Anderson's project, is that correct?
That's one of them.
Is it? We met with Gina this morning, and we've got the permitting process on the way for that particular project. And I guess one of the reasons why we're here tonight is we're interested in some of the changes that are going to be made to the permitting process, primarily dealing with the metrics of how the permitting process will maybe be charged. I know that the owner is interested in this. I know that on your form, there are maybe, I don't know how to describe it, an industrial structure costs this, commercial costs this, if you're tearing down a shed, it costs this. And I'm just curious as to how that metric will change and what we need to do as a contractor to present this to the owner. And maybe quantify that change, because I know that they are curious and they are wondering. And as far as the permitting process goes, I think that we're in line with getting there. So, but just to let you know that we are working with the city as far as being very visible in that regard. So if there are any questions that you folks have about the demolition, the process, you know, et cetera. We've got a very detailed plan laid out that we do for a lot of the customers that we work for. So, and my information is attached to all that. So if anybody wants to reach out, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody further? Okay, thank you. I would like to pause here for a minute and just, if we have some answers for some of the people that came forward with their concerns, I'd like to give just a piece here that we might be able to give answers. If we don't have them right away, we'll certainly get them for you. So, Mr. Birch, is there anything you can help some of these folks with?
I can. First of all, I'm trying to figure out why it's so cold. And I've got somebody remotely from home logging into the system, 49.4 degrees. Training, it's an alarm that shut it down. Okay, so we're communicating with training. Sorry, I apologize. The gentleman talked about the narrowness of angled parking spaces. That is the typical industry standard now, because cars are a typical width of, like, for instance, my Grand Cherokee is 6 foot 2 inches wide. Some pickup trucks are in the 7 foot range, and if they're 7 foot, if you're actually parking in the middle of a space, 2 pickup trucks next to each other, so you have 4 feet between them on a 9 foot space. Research shows that when you have a wider space, people are more careless with how they open their doors, and they hit the other car instead of being careful about how they get out of their vehicle. Similar to how you see a narrow lane. It was intentional to make them 9 feet wide, because and a lot of parking lots are built that way now. They're narrowing lanes so that people are more careful and more intentional about when they make their way through parking lots to get in and out of the vehicle, including our parking lot here is also the same. I can address that and get some of the research for you, sir, but I mean, I'm open what council wishes to do, but that's a pretty typical industry standard now in terms of width of a parking space, especially at an angle. We even require less parking, less asphalt than we did before. We don't even require parking in an uptown area. We put them on the street so that we wouldn't have surface lots that were taking up places where buildings ought to be. So, as for the demolition, I think the demolition was put in this ordinance because it was very clear. There's a number of demolitions we're doing, by the way. House demolition going, 2 house demolitions going on right now, commercial demolition, plus a proposal on some of the what this gentleman spoke about that he's doing for the Andersons and Cargill site, taking down some of the large silos. When we first got a permit, and I don't think that's what Mr. Farrell was talking about specifically, you were talking about demolitions in general, because it's in the ordinance, because we know, and you well know, because you know we have the NESHAP standards that we submitted today. When we got the permit, we didn't have any of that. We didn't have any asbestos clearance reports. We didn't have an asbestos report. We didn't have a NESHAP pending notice. We didn't have any of that stuff. Done that for years in my career. I've done 1,000 demolitions, especially some very large structures. But when I saw that, I said, Gina, we have to have all that before we can issue a permit to verify that we're not in trouble for not upping up. He does have the reports. I looked at them today. And I know it's a little inconvenient, but we have to make sure that our ordinance states those standards that we have to follow, because we have federal standards that we're not exempt from, much the same as FEMA. You know, when FEMA says we have to enforce against them all because they never did a Lomar amendment, that's on us, because we're the ones who enforce local federal law in terms of floodplain management and waterways. So we're on the hook to enforce those things, and we don't want to get in trouble. We already have an issue with the EPA for illicit discharges. We don't want to misstep. So we're sorry for the inconvenience, but sometimes we have to make sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted to make sure that our staff doesn't put themselves in harm's way. So we'll be reviewing those tomorrow with our attorneys and just go through to make sure everything's is accounted for, and then we'll move forward from there. So apologize for doing it.
And I think as to the fees too, that, you know, we discussed, it's really gonna depend on the nature of the project, you know, the number of inspections that are required that we have to do. If there's like a SWIP that we have to follow up with and do inspections on. So generally at the start, you know, once we have all the plans in place, we'll have a general idea of what kind kind of fees would be assessed, or potentially gonna be assessed against, for demolition.
And we don't really have, I mean, when you're spraying this, and this gentleman knows, obviously when you take a building like this down, you have to spray it, you have to keep the dust down, and that's a tremendous amount of water that gets on the site, that it's contained before it's cleaned. So a SWIP is probably necessary from that perspective. These are very tall structures. So those are the kind of things we have to look at administratively to make sure of it, and quite frankly, our was a one-size-fits-all demolition bid. I don't think anybody ever thought that those large silos were ever gonna come down in our lifetime. Clearly they will, or they'll fall eventually themselves. So we have to make sure that we do everything to try to recoup the city taxpayer costs so that we're not subsidizing something. And if we end up having to do, like Alan said, if we have to do a specific number of inspections, we'll probably set a fee that's done administratively that takes into account to cover the cost of the inspection. We can't make profit, we can't make money, we won't, but we have to at least cover the cost back that our taxpayers are subsidizing for those inspections. Sorry.
I think I just had to kind of speaking to the fees, I understand fees. Would they be, we can't tax up the community, but within relative guidelines of other municipalities around us that have that same kind of standards?
I would never judge ourselves against other communities because a lot of communities do the same thing we did. There it is. We never really have a sanct system that determines what these things ought to cost. Private firms are good at this. Law firms, engineering firms, they're good at covering their entire cost plus their overhead and allocated rate. We never did that. We thought, boy, $50 seems like a lot of money. We never really decided what the actual cost of providing them. So you end up highly subsidizing contractors or businesses when you shouldn't be probably, because that means your regular residential taxpayers are paying that freight. So I'm sure that you will have some people say that our fees might be exorbitant compared to another community, but who are you comparing to? Right?
Well, I agree with stuff. When you're going out, you have to be paid for your time and effort to ensure the party responsible to keep things within code and their safety regulations. Thank you.
Relative to what the contractor, the gentleman said, what I hear him saying is that, I've had this amount of requirements in order to get this job initiated, and is that gonna change with anything that this ordinance is gonna pass? That's what I kind of heard what his concern was. So is any of these ordinances actually gonna change some of his requirements more than what he's already done?
I'm not, if I may speak, I'm not more or less concerned about the requirements. We're so accustomed to providing information, that's not a big deal. It's more the cost associated. When we went into this project and we're bidding the project, it's right there in black and white, so I'm going off of your document. And then we adjust our numbers according to what is there, and now I don't know what.
I can tell you that our staff is open to having those discussions with you, Regina and Patrick. So if there's concerns that you have, there's probably a different venue to vet those out.
I also know that you had made mention of the water and SWPP. The amount of property that we'll be disturbing will be less than an acre, which normally qualifies for anything above an acre will qualify for SWPP. And I know that you're concerned about taking a 2.5-inch water hose and watering the site. That's not how we're going to do it. We've got we have a water atomizer. It's a very large cannon, and it's run by like a 300 horse motor, and it's going to be blowing mist at like 180 miles an hour and making like a curtain. Is it perfect? No, but it's better than a garden hose or a fire hose. So that's going to be out there, and the amount of water that's going to be wasted is going to be very, very minute. Dandy bags, things like that, that's common practice for us, and we do take care to protect the storm water, runoff, etc. So these things, just to let you all know, we're scrutinized by Procter & Gamble, Marathon Petroleum, Synovus Refinery. There isn't anything that we can't do that's this dangerous that I don't usually have a team of safety people standing there saying, you can't do that, you can't do that. So we're very much used to that. Like I said, any of these questions that you have, I make myself very available to answer them. So I'm sorry if I'm taking up so much time, but I feel as though it's necessary to maybe tackle some of these questions as they're getting brought up.
Okay.
As the mayor said, this isn't the place to do that because the council won't make those administrative determinations. That gets carried out by myself and my staff, and we'll work with you. But when we first got the one permit application, we didn't know about the dandy bags. We didn't know about the way the process for watering and misusing. But I'm familiar with what you're talking about, but we didn't know any of that. So we can't grant a permit on something we don't understand and don't know. So, you know, part of that process for the equipment, but this came just this evening before I came in here. So we can meet tomorrow, if I get some time with Gina, and we'll go through that. We're meeting in the morning to discuss the project anyway, to make sure we've got everything we need, so we can issue a permit, and then we can contact you right after that.
Great.
We usually try to find a way to say yes, so we'll work with any of your concerns.
Thank you.
And the other thing with Mr. Ehrman, I know he talked about the crosswalk at Harrison, and I kind of had just some written communications with Mr. Leinbach about some of that, how visual that is. And I guess one of my questions is, to Mr. Birch, is that crosswalk there at Harrison across Conant Street, is it adequately lit? Is it adequately signed? I mean, when you walk across it on a Sunday morning, it's different than if somebody's gonna try to walk across it on a Friday evening. So, I didn't know if that was completely done, or if there was some...
No.
Okay. I figured. Okay.
Good for you, Mark, that you survived it. There are actually 4 lit bollard stances that are there. The bollards are installed because we don't have Edison power on anything we did uptown. Everything running uptown is being done through the old wired system, kind of taped together and extension cord. I think we can, it meets code, because we don't have the 1800 amps of service that we had at each location brought in for a number of things that we're doing. So the trees in that island also have EONs at the end, at the base of each of those trees. Those trees will be lit just like all the uptown trees all the time. Plus you have lit bollards in those islands. Those just aren't there yet. And because we had a drug driver that they hit the front of the island, we're gonna be installing at least, not that it would have made a difference in this case, but we'll put some temporary reflectors on the tip of the island so we could see it, because it's rather dark at night. So yes, it's not lit all the way.
Okay. So we're not completed yet.
Can I add to that too?
Yes.
So I don't go on Sunday morning when I walk that crosswalk, and I tell Patrick all the time how much I love it. And people are very, they go a lot slower going towards Perrysburg in that single lane, which is amazing. And even if I tend to go when there's a lot of traffic, and even the people coming from Perrysburg and coming to Maumee will stop and let you through when there's a lot of traffic. And I mean, I tell my son to take that way because he can look only one direction, cross into the island, and then literally only have to worry about traffic from another direction. And he doesn't have to worry about people turning and everything else at Broadway. Like, I think it's a lot safer there, but I enjoy it a lot as well, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to say one more thing. The temperature's actually raised a degree in the last 10 minutes. About every 10 minutes, degree, by the time we're done with the meeting. The alarm has been overridden and it's rising, so it's just slow.
All right, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. And I would like to add an executive session for pending litigation at the request of the law director to be added after council comment at the end of the meeting. Could somebody entertain a motion for that, please? Yeah, Mr. Fiskus.
I will move to add executive session to number 13.
Okay, you second for that? Mr. Barrow?
I'll second that.
We'll call the roll on that, please.
Fiskus,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Kurt. Yes. Leinbach,
Yes.
Noonan,
Yes.
Pufferberger,
Yes.
Barrow.
Yes.
Okay, and we need a motion to approve the agenda as submitted or as revised. Yes, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McDonald. I will move to approve the agenda submitted.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Fiskus,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Kurt. Yes. Leinbach,
Yes.
Noonan,
Yes.
Pufferberger,
Yes.
Barrow.
Yes.
Need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 2nd, 2024. Mr. Noonan?
Thank you, Mayor McDowell. I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 2nd, 2024.
And a second, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor McDonald. I will second that motion.
Call the roll on the meeting minutes.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kurt? Lineback?
Yes.
Noonan?
Yes.
Hoffenberger?
Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
All right, we have no petition and communications. We'll move to consent calendar. We'll make a motion and a second to approve them, and then we'll have a discussion on them. Mr. Harris, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McDonald. I will move to approve all consent calendar items.
I think Mayor Hart, I'll second the motion. Or, Mayor, I did it again. Thank you, Mayor McDowell. I'll second that motion. Jeez.
Thank you. A is a recommendation from the mayor to approve the council committee assignments for this next year. Those assignments are finance and economic development will be Chairman Ms. Puffenberger, members Barrow and Harris. Parks and Recreation, Chairman Mr. Fiskus with members Kirk and Harris. And Personnel, Chairman Mr. Noonan with members Lineback and Barrow. B is a recommendation from the city administrator. I'm sorry, authorizing the clerk to return transfer request for a liquor permit for Sabas Bistro. Yeah.
And Mayor, I could address that. It's just really a change of ownership at that location of the permit. So it's like from a corporation to an LLC, I believe it's the same owner. So we could request a hearing if there was an objection to that, but it doesn't appear that there's any basis for that.
Okay, thank you. Next is a recommendation from the city administrator to authorize a contract renewal for 2024 Social Green Thumb for support of public information officer in social media management and content creation, website management, graphic design, video for public outreach, and ongoing consulting on strategy and implementation. We've used Social Green Thumb in the past. It kind of speaks for itself.
Same contract, same as the next item too.
Okay.
Chambers.
And the second item is also a renewal of a contract with the Maumee Chamber of Commerce, which is something that has been ongoing. Any other discussion on the consent calendar items? Call the roll, please.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kurt? Lineback?
Yes.
Noonan?
Yes.
Hoffenberger?
Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
Under new business, we have a recommendation from the city administrator. We'll need two motions on this to suspend the rules and approve the ordinance. It's to approve ordinance 001-2024, an ordinance amending ordinance 59-2022 relative to the compensation of part-time employees of the city of Maumee, repealing certain ordinance and declaring an emergency. Anything further on that?
I would like to add something.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. These are complex, but a lot of it is things that have been in place for a long time, or rather need to be put in place. And I hear Councilman Lineback brings up a good point. These are ordinances that are passed by vote and then they become administrative, but they can always, if there is something that's really out of place or doesn't seem right, they can bring their concerns and they can be revisited. But the importance of the emergency is for just that, because it's important to get our codes to follow the state and federal laws and our city codes as well. Thank you.
Anything further on this ordinance, Mr. Birch? On A, anything to add on A?
No.
Okay. Need a motion to suspend the rules and declare emergency? Mr. Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McDonald. I will first move to suspend the rules and declare an emergency.
And a second, please, Mr. Lineback.
That motion, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Call the roll on suspend the rules.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kurt? Lineback?
Yes.
Noonan?
Yes.
Hoffenberger?
Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
And I will move to approve ordinance 001-2024, an ordinance amending ordinance 059-2022.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Call the roll.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kurt? Lineback?
Yes.
Noonan?
Yes.
Hoffenberger?
Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
Okay, on B, recommendation from the law director on approval 002-2024, an ordinance amending the Maumee Chapter 1301 of the Maumee Codified Ordinances, permits and certifications, and declaring an emergency. So we need a a motion to suspend the rules and declare an emergency. Yes, Mr. Newman.
All right, thank you, Mayor McDonald. I would first like to make a motion to suspend the rules and declare an emergency.
Second, Mr. Barrow. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. I'll second that motion.
Call the roll, please, on suspend the rules.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kirk? Lineback?
No.
Noonan?
Yes.
Pufferberger? Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
And then I would also like to make a motion to approve ordinance 002/2024.
I will second that motion.
Call the roll.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kirk? Lineback?
No.
Noonan?
Yes.
Pufferberger? Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
Okay, C is a recommendation from the law director. We'll need two motions on this as well. Approving ordinance 003/2024, an ordinance amending chapter 1305 of the Maumee Codified Ordinances to update the licensing requirements for building, construction, remodeling, and other contractors working in Maumee and declaring an emergency. Yes, Mr. Fiskus.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. I will first move to suspend the rules and declare an emergency.
Ms. Buckenberger.
Yes, thank you, Mayor McDonald. I'd like to second that motion.
Call the roll, please.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kirk? Lineback?
No.
Noonan?
Yes.
Pufferberger?
Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
And then I would like to move to approve ordinance 003/2024.
And I will second that motion.
Call the roll, please.
Fiskus?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kirk? Lineback?
No.
Noonan?
Yes.
Pufferberger?
Yes.
Barrow?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move to council comment. Mr. Fiskus.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. Just wanted to commend you on a great first State of the City address. Looking forward to it being posted online and everyone getting to watch it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
It's cold out west.
Mr. Kirk.
Yeah, thank you. I have two families now. I'm from a big family, and the outpouring of support and good wishes from most of you tells me if I ever get out of here, I'll be joining another family. I really, really, dearly appreciate the support you have offered, and as I said before, the very delicacy of what the speaker. Particularly, Council President Barrow came over here, I believe it was Saturday morning, and we went over the packet and we did so forth. That was good, very helpful. So thank you, Dave, for that. And I hope to see you real soon.
Thank you. Mr. Lamont.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. I too would like to echo Councilman Fiskus's congratulatory remarks about your presentation and the state of the city today. It was top shelf, very positive message, easy to follow. Your goals for your term were very clearly laid out. I think people are going to really appreciate it. It seems some nodding heads of people who were there. So that was one. Second, just to explain a little bit where I'm coming from, if something is a real emergency, I think if the ordinance was only dealing with the real emergency, it would be a lot easier for me to support it. But when there are other things that are not emergencies, and there's one thing that is an emergency, I think we should be able to peel those apart, make it a little clearer. And lastly, I'd like to really thank the public service people who took care of a water leak. There was a break over in my block the other day, and neighbors were alerted to it about 5:30 in the morning. Terrible thing, but that's what happens this time of year, unfortunately. But our people were, thank you, Dr. Birch, were right on it, dealing in that really cold, nasty weather. But it got fixed pretty fast. That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Noonan.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. Congratulations on your presentation today. It was really, specific and direct, so I appreciate that. Other than that, I just want to ask that the executive session be on the second floor because I'm turning into Rudolph over here.
Thank you, Ms. Pumper.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. I'd also like to congratulate you on a great presentation today. I've been a part of Chamber for a very long time. I've listened to many presentations by Mayor Carr, and I loved how you included in the state of the city kind of your goals starting out in your new role as mayor. I thought that was a great addition to the city this year, and it was a great just kind of overview of all the projects. The visuals were amazing. It was nice to see my kids make a picture. Yeah, it was really nice. It was a great pump up, and I'm glad I had the question of whether it was going to be available online. So thank you, John, for confirming that, because I would be looking for that link. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Barrow?
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. Well, you took what I had left there, Margo, for my accolades for Mayor Kim, but it was really nice and comprehensive, and somebody came up and asked me, well, what do you think of all this, what he's talked about? We talked about the last 4 years, boy, it's been a fast 4 years. I said, well, everything you said is what we're doing, we're just gonna keep moving forward. And now we have Nancy, our public information person, being able to put out what we're doing and when we're doing it and giving people heads ups as we get travel down the road. It's a lot to learn, but welcome aboard. And thank you for y'all sticking around in the cold weather. I don't know if I was cold weather. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm gonna pass, I've had plenty to say today. And we will now take a motion to move to executive session. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'll make a motion to go into executive session for pending litigation on the second floor.
On the second floor, thank you.
Ms. Butler,
Yes, I will second that motion.
call the roll, please.
Biscuits?
Yeah.
Harris?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Weinbach?
Yes.
Noonan?
Yes.
Pufferberger?
Yes.
Barrow?
Excuse me.
And understand, we won't be taking any action on this, this is just informative to update.
If anybody wants to stick around, it'll be up to 68 by 7 a.m.
Promise.
No thanks.
Actually, it calculated out, it's about time it'll hit 7.
That's still not warm enough for me.
No, it's not. Here, it's 7.
Okay, so we're not going there. That was.
Well, Dave, I'll see you around.
All right, sounds good.